The 2-month battle for Avdiivka has been a bloodbath for Russia. They have lost hundreds of vehicles and possibly thousands of people, and inflicted far fewer casualties on the Avdiivka garrison in Ukraine. Ukraine's military said Russian forces launched a new major offensive on the eastern Ukrainian town of Avdiivka, just northwest of the Russian-occupied city of Donetsk. Military spokesman Alexander Stupon told Ukrainian television that heavy fighting took place with 610 rounds of artillery fire reported near Avdiivka over the previous 24 hours. There was no immediate comment from Russia regarding fighting in the region. The Russian assault on Avdiivka continued to involve mostly dismounted infantry attacks, often by punitive Stormzy units. The Institute for War Studies said Russian forces carry out infantry-led frontal attacks on Ukrainian strongholds at high cost. A video shows Ukrainian troops destroying and damaging 7 tanks and armored fighting vehicles in the Krynak area on the left bank of the Dnieper with kamikaze drones. The clip was edited from footage taken both by the munition barrage itself and by a controlled, unmanned aerial vehicle. The anti-aircraft missile system Buk, 2 tanks, and up to half a platoon of Russian invaders were also destroyed by fighters of the 14th Separate Regiment of the Armed Forces of Ukraine with kamikaze drones. First, the defeat of the interventionists in that position is demonstrated. Next, several drones attacked each of the 2 tanks. And in the end, it was seen that the Buk air defense system was in firing position in several forests after the explosion began to burn strongly, while the missiles automatically flew somewhere. The British Ministry of Defence, MOD, said that Avdiivka had been the scene of the most intense fighting on the front line, citing Ukrainian data that on some days about 40% of the fighting was likely to occur in small sectors. But the MOD said that Ukrainian units have likely mounted a successful local counterattack, denying Russian forces full control of the village of Stepove. This was also reported by Kremlin-affiliated Russian mill blogger Rybar, who said that Ukrainian troops had advanced in an unspecified forest area near Stepove, where Russian troops were trying to carry out one part of a pincer movement to envelop Avdiivka and the industrial zone surrounding it, strictly guarded. Russia is losing 3,000 troops for every square mile they gain around the main city of Avdiivka in eastern Ukraine, it has been reported. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy was in Washington on Tuesday to meet with President Biden. Zelenskyy once again implored U.S. lawmakers to continue supporting Ukraine amid Republican efforts to halt funding for Kyiv to pressure Biden to take action on migration coming from Mexico. In a clip presented, a group of invaders calmly walks along a road, passing at least 5 destroyed armored fighting vehicles, among them at least 2 tanks. The fact that the invaders roamed freely along the roads indicated that they controlled the region. Ukrainian tanks, which have not played a significant role in fighting in recent months, played an important role in repelling Russian attacks around the town of Avdiivka. Both Russia and Ukraine generally position their tanks behind the front lines to avoid minefields and drone and artillery attacks. Instead, they were used more as long-range artillery rather than engaging in direct combat. But in Avdiivka, where Russia launched its biggest offensive in months, Ukrainian tanks have returned to the front lines of the battle. When Russia began its campaign to capture Avdiivka, its forces continued to send armored troops into battle and suffered heavy losses, including hundreds of tanks and other vehicles. Russian troops in southern Ukraine have advanced rapidly around the village of Novopokrovka in the Zaporizhzhia region, Russian occupation authorities said. Our units have advanced significantly northeast of Novopokrovka, wrote Yevgeny Belitsky, head of the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia region via telegram. Newly declassified U.S. intelligence suggests that Russia appears to believe that a military stalemate over the winter would sap Western support for Ukraine and ultimately give Russia an advantage even if it suffered a loss, said Adrienne Watson, a spokeswoman for the White House National Security Council. Ukraine was successful in stopping Russian forces, but Putin continued to order his troops forward despite losing a lot of troops and equipment since October, he added. A month before Ukraine launched its counteroffensive in June, Alexei Danilov, Secretary of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, said it presented a historic opportunity. 6 months later, Ukraine's major efforts to retake Russian-occupied and heavily fortified territory in the south and east of the country have yielded no results. Danilov acknowledged Ukraine was too optimistic about the counterattack, saying people sometimes make mistakes. You can't be a grade A student your whole life. It is widely accepted that the counteroffensive has failed to achieve its objectives and few breakthroughs are expected as winter sets in. Although so far the offensive has shown no sign of curbing military activity, with fighting intensifying in the war's hotspots in eastern Ukraine. Russian troops are not just defending their positions. In Donetsk in eastern Ukraine, they have also launched what Ukraine even describes as significant offensive operations around Avdiivka and Marinka in a bid to seize more ground in the region.